Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Peter Dorhout today as our guest speaker. He's going to talk to us on something near and dear to my heart and many of the members in this room here. He's going to talk to us today about leadership. Peter currently serves as a professor of chemistry and the dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Kansas State University, where he's been since January of 2012. Prior to coming to Kansas State, Peter served as the interim provost at Colorado State University, Pueblo, preceded by 20 years at the Colorado State University of Fort Collins as the vice provost for graduate studies and as the assistant vice president for research and professor of chemistry. He has served as a collaborator at Los Alamos National Laboratory since 1987, and he has led professional organizations and foundations as a member of the board of directors for the American Chemical Society, the Research Corporations for Science Advancement, the Kansas State University Research Foundation, and the Coronado Council BSA Executive Board. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Dorhout.
Thank you very much, and it's going to take a minute or two to figure out how to switch things over, and so please bear with me. But as I'm doing that, I'd just like to get a show of hands in the room here. How many folks have been involved in scouting? Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any kind of scouting, okay? So all of this is going to not be new to you. So give me a moment. I truly am not terribly challenged. There we go. I hope it's up. And again, thank you for the opportunity to visit with you. And as you saw around the room, the number of folks who are engaged in scouting in one way or another is very substantial. And I think you will all, who had your hands up, you'll all agree with me that the value of this organization is hard to compare to values of other organizations, particularly for you. Now, I'm a relatively new member of this organization, and I'm pleased to have been invited by Sean to join with you. And as I was looking through, because I do my homework, as I was looking through things like the 4-way test, I really got to see the connections between an organization in Boy Scouts that I had, it's near and dear to my heart, this organization, and leaders within the community. And leaders could come in all forms. They come in the forms of individuals who come to us and have developed wonderful programs for youth in our community. Leaders come to us from different parts of the state who stand up and serve the people of Kansas or the people of our community in so many different ways. And so leaders come to us from lots of different places. And I just wanted to share with you my perspectives. As a member of the speakers committee, we were sitting around trying to decide, well, who could speak where, and one of the committee members said to me, well, Peter, you can speak about something. And so this gave me an opportunity to take that thought about the 4-way test and my passions in scouting and leadership and bring them home to just share with you for a few minutes, and I promise it will only be a few minutes. I know you know how long professors like to speak. Only a few minutes on leadership. So I'm going to highlight where our organizations all intersect and point out the values that we all share, the values particularly around leadership. So let me point out to you, if you're not familiar with the Scout Oath and the Scout laws. The Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. I committed that to memory years ago as part of my initiation, that's a little too strong a term, into scouting, and I've tried to live by those terms my entire life. And in the Scout Oath, we take a duty to God and country, a duty to others, a duty to self. And those are all intersecting in what I will call the 12 attributes of leadership that are true in any organization, true in any form, and including our own here in Rotary. So when we look at the four-way tests of Rotary, we ask, is it the truth? And I say, a scout is trustworthy. Is it fair to all concerned? The scout is loyal, the scout is reverent. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? The scout is friendly, the scout does a good turn daily. Will it be beneficial to everyone concerned? The scout is helpful, provides cheerful service. So scouting and Rotary have a tremendous intersection of ideals and values. And so for me, being part of Rotary is really being part of a very familiar organization with very familiar values and ideals. How does this intersect with leadership? Well, it's certainly fitting that in the talk about scouting, we talk about leadership and use the metaphor of the tent. And the tent, as you can see up here, has 5 poles. They hold up the 4 corners of the tent, and you always have to have a center pole, otherwise the whole thing collapses. And so in terms of leadership, I like to think of that center pole as the pole of character. That pole of character is the one that holds really the whole thing up. Without character, the center falls in, the rain comes in on you, regardless of the fact that the other 4 poles are out there holding up a tent. You don't have a tent, you have a funnel. So one of the most important tenets of leadership is character. The other 4 poles are there, and they're very critical. Personal capabilities and the focus on results, interpersonal skills in leading organizations and change, those are critical aspects of leadership. So how do they intersect with scouting, and how do they intersect with our 4-way test? So I'm also going to take you through a pictorial journey of my own time in scouting. So you'll have to forgive some of the really old pictures. I'll just say I'm lucky they're in color. So really, when it comes to character in that center tent pole, it's about displaying high moral standards. It's about building trust. And as scouts, we are trustworthy. As scouts, we also earn badges. And by earning merit badges, we build our personal capabilities. We build up our skill set. And one of the important holes in our tent is personal capabilities. So one of those important merit badges is orienteering. Orienteering is all about finding your way. And as leaders, we have to think proactively and prepare for obstacles that come into our path. But there's some inspirational thoughts around that. If the path doesn't have any obstacles, is it really going to lead anywhere? So orienteering for me was a critical merit badge because it helped me understand how to think about leading down a path with obstacles, and how do we ultimately get to where we want to be. We also have to evaluate and research alternatives. You have to be a bit of an analytical thinker to recognize some of the challenges along the way. So chemistry merit badge for me was one where I could research the kinds of things that I wanted to explore and research things that I didn't know anything about, but I was very willing to learn. And I think that's another important characteristic of leaders who are building their capacity, building their willingness to learn, and illustrating to others that we don't know everything when we walk into a particular situation. But people will follow us if they understand that we're willing to learn too. We're willing to take the information that we gain in that learning process and apply it to our situations. And of course, that's all about preparing for lifelong learning. If we're really not preparing for lifelong learning, then we're not necessarily always out there stimulating our minds. So reading Merit Badge was an important Merit Badge for me. Reading Merit Badge was all about how to take in information and read the literature, and try to understand, putting myself in the place of the author, what that author was trying to convey. Again, helping me build my personal capacity is all about being a lifelong learner. And then there's building a consensus. That's the other characteristic of leaders. I like to also use the term leading without authority. And as a leader among faculty in a university, leading without authority is critical. I hear some snickers, so I know there are faculty out there. Leading without authority is so valuable, because it's actually in a way in which you can get things done, because people want to follow you. They don't feel compelled to follow you. But part of leadership is also being able to understand who you're leading and who you're working with, understanding their personal capacities and capabilities, and being able to take advantage of the talents that people have and apply it to a problem you're trying to solve. So I always tell folks that we need to utilize the knowledge of others and their expertise and apply it to the problems that we're going to solve. That helps build consensus. It lets people feel like they're part of the solution. And as a leader, it's also important that we make life and work as easy as possible. There are difficult jobs, and here are two examples. There are difficult jobs out there, but as a leader, we need to assess those jobs, assess what's happening, and try to make it easier for people. And of course, another critical merit badge for me was communications. Communications isn't just about me speaking to you. It's about me listening to you as well. Good leaders learn how to listen. They learn how to build the capacity of others by listening to their talents, listening to their perspectives, and helping them apply that to the problem that they're trying to solve. And developing your leadership team. And one of the foundations of scouting is building teams, whether it's patrols or troops or posts and explorers or crews and venturing. Building your leadership team, and building that team based on the capacity of others and helping them build their capacities as well. Nobody's going to follow someone if they don't believe in them and don't trust them. And no one's a leader if there's nobody willing to follow. So I believe in applying all of the things that we learn, all of the tenets of leadership, our four-way test to all of our activities that we do in our daily lives. And of course, when you are a leader, you have to have a succession plan. You never know when someone's going to operate in an unsafe manner, as are displayed here. Another one of my favorite merit badges is emergency preparedness, because you just never know how someone's going to choose to work on their car, work on electricity, standing in a pool of water on an aluminum ladder, or as this gentleman over on the far right is displaying, and a group of people who are in Tyvek suits and wearing respirators. He's standing there in shorts and a t-shirt. So clearly, he needs a succession plan. And of course, plan strategically for the future. Everyone has been involved at some level in strategic planning, and it's important that a leader plans with his or her team strategically and thinks about not necessarily all of the things that could possibly go wrong. We don't want to get wrapped around the axle of that particular exercise, but being prepared as a good scout, being prepared for any eventuality is really critical. So I've taken you through a very short journey of this tent of leadership. I hope I've shared with you how these 5 tent poles, and the center one being the most important one of character, these 5 tent poles of leadership can hold up your tents. And how these 5 tent poles of leadership also can connect the organizations such as Scouting with Rotary, with lots of other organizations that are out there. My passion happens to be about Scouting. And my new passion happens to be about Rotary, because I can see critical connections between them and my day job. So let me just close by talking a little bit about what we can do as senior leaders in our community. I think it's important that senior leaders are involved in mentoring junior leaders. That's about succession planning. It's about developing folks who are going to be our next elected officials, folks who are going to be the next leaders of Rotary, the next leaders of our organizations, whether we're the president of a bank or we're the president of a very small company. We need to think about how we're going to build up our leadership team. Scouts are always seeking volunteer project opportunities, and I want to remind people that that ultimate goal that Scouts will look towards, and in particular Boy Scouts, it's the Eagle Scout. And every Eagle Scout needs a project. Every community should be looking towards their scouting organizations and working with them to find out what can we do together to make this a great community. How can we build Manhattan, Kansas, using the talents of our young people, the leadership capacity that they're starting to display, and make this a better place. And so I'm reaching out to you as a Scouter and fellow Rotarian. Think about that. Think about what do you need? What does your organization need? What do you need? You need shovels and picks and rakes and things. But you need folks who are also willing to shovel and rake and hoe and all that. There are great opportunities to engage young people here in our community and help them build their leadership skills as well. So I'll just close by saying, for every 100 boys who join Scouting, much, much fewer than one will ever appear in juvenile court. And these are statistics from the national office. Much, much fewer than one will ever appear in juvenile court. I'm wondering how I fit into that statistic myself, but 17 become future Scout leaders. 12 will have had their first contact ever with a church or religious organization that sponsors Scouting. 1 Scout will use skills to save someone's life. And 40% will graduate from college, compared to the national average where 16% of the general population will graduate from college. So when we think about building our leadership team in a community like Manhattan, Kansas, think about Rotary, think about Scouting, think about how they intersect, and we'll have a great community here in Manhattan. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this afternoon and share my passions. And thank you for all you do for Manhattan, for Rotary, for the community at large.
questions for Peter? I think he said it all. Thank you. And in honor of your speaker,